Hello, and welcome to this lovely Stories from the Stage session. We're coinciding with COP26, coming together during Eden's Festival of Discovery, which is all about working together for our planet. The climate emergency is a huge problem that requires us to use our skills and creativity and our determination and collaboration too. And on that note, I am delighted to welcome two journalists who are doing great work to bring climate change related stories to new audiences. So a big welcome to Alice Okonji and Pauline Blanchet, who join us today. They are both winners from the Falmouth University's recent Reporting Earth Summit. So welcome, Alice, and welcome, Pauline. Lovely to have you here today.
Hello, hi, thanks for having me.
Hi, Pauline. It's absolutely wonderful to have you here during the festival to talk about your fantastic project. And obviously, as I mentioned before, that is part of the Reporting Earth Summit Bursary that was from Falmouth University. Can you just tell us a little bit about that, just by way of context and introduction, please?
Yeah, of course. So Falmouth University put out an application to get some young journalists to find new ways of reporting on the climate crisis. And then us as winners got the opportunity to go through some workshops and some training to try and turn our ideas into something tangible. And so with Falmouth University and some of our mentors, we had the opportunity to then pitch our idea as part of the Reporting Earth Summit. And it was an incredible opportunity. We got to be in front of some big journalists and outlets, including Al Jazeera, and it taught us how to kind of explain not just the story of what we were reporting on, but the actual process of how we were getting there. Yeah, incredible opportunity.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And so just in terms of the kind of interaction and during that process, were there kind of sessions where you were kind of working with other young journalists as well to kind of collaborate on developing your ideas?
So for example, Alice and I did some sessions together. It wasn't necessarily collaborating, but we've definitely kind of fed back on each other's projects. And also, I think it was interesting to see how there's so many different ways of reporting on the climate crisis from different directions. And I think, I definitely learned a lot from Alice's project, for example.
Yeah, fantastic. So at this point, I'd like to bring Alice on. And just obviously an opportunity to introduce you, Alice. So Alice, can you tell us a little bit about, first of all, where you're calling in from? And obviously that's an exciting story in itself, and also your part in the Reporting Earth Summit.
Great. I'm calling in from the Pearl of Africa, Uganda. It's a beautiful day, and I'm in Uganda. I work with an organization called InfoNile, and InfoNile, we are a group of journalists. We tell climate change stories, environment and water specifically. So to take part in Reporting Earth, we had an idea of new way of reporting climate using mobile magazines. So it was the idea that actually got us into Reporting Earth, and we got to work with the team at the university and Fathom. We were linked with mentors from Fathom, and we had sessions with them. That's how we met Pauline. I met Pauline, and we also got taken through just the process of nurturing an idea into an actual end product that an audience can interact with. And I must say, it was a very interesting idea. It was an interesting process, and very glad to be here.
Yeah. So how did you, just really intrigued, did you first actually hear about this? You know, because obviously you're kind of, I'm guessing you're not actually at Falmouth University, are you? Or what's the background to that?
We work with an exciting team here in Africa called Code for Africa, and Code for Africa has done I think projects with the university, so they were able to just loop us in as a way of emails and just saying, check this out, we think it's a nice opportunity for you and your team. So yeah, we heard this from our partners.
Oh wow, fantastic. And actually, kind of the idea that you're kind of networking globally with, you know, inspiring journalists, people who are kind of developing projects kind of internationally, obviously on the subject of climate change, is really, really fascinating. So Alice, can I just ask you about your actual you know, Bursary Prize winning project specifically, because that, I mean, sounds really fascinating.
So we won, drum rolls, $1,500. And then, yeah, thank you. We all received each idea received $1,500. So and the bursary came with something more valuable than money, which was mentorship and just the opportunity to present this at the Reporting Out Summit, where we met other journalists, Al Jazeera. We met renowned activists. So it wasn't just funds we received. We received a process. We received mentorship to start our process of developing mobile magazines that has really grown, and I hope to share with you about how much it's grown later. But it was really, still is quite exciting when we think about our just networking with a global audience and being able to share stories from the Nile Basin with a global audience. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So can I just ask you very quickly about what mobile magazines actually are? What is that? You know, because many people might not know.
Yeah, mobile magazines, I are just from the word mobile magazines, but for WhatsApp we have we because we work with journalists to tell stories of climate change, solution based stories. We really have to insist on that. So our stories often aren't just stories that are telling you problems and problems and problems, but most of them have a solution element. And what we realized is many people, when they go to our website to read our stories, they're really long and detailed. We are really big on data. So most of the time you come to our site and it's just data that you'll have to, if you have to have interest to enjoy. So we realized that for people to be able to interact with our content easily, to share our content easily, we simplified our content into a mobile magazine. This mobile magazine comes in, you receive it on WhatsApp. So you subscribe to a number, you receive the mobile magazine on WhatsApp. And once you have it, it has a collection of stories with actionable points that communities are actually doing. And then it also has data, it has multimedia, so you can have videos, you can have podcasts, it has drone imagery. So we combine all this based on a theme. For example, we have one called Plastic Pollution in Lake Victoria, and it just shows you everything about plastic pollution in Lake Victoria, anything you might
Wow.
want to know. Yeah,
Sounds
it's really cool.
amazing.
It's
So
really
it's
fun.
really dynamic, actually. It's like reporting in a really dynamic, modern way. And actually, just coming to you, Pauline, on your approach, because I mean, Alice has touched on this idea that, you know, you've got film, you've got blogs, you've got the kind of technology now. What's been your approach with your project through her eyes? Because I mean, there's many layers that we could go into, but just in terms of what you kind of came up with your bursary approach.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm actually a filmmaker, so I definitely would consider myself a journalist as well, but film is definitely the medium I think is the most useful. So I thought that there was a bit of a gap in kind of in reporting, specifically to do with the climate crisis. I think there's a lot of ethical reasons and a lot of representational reasons why you know, it shouldn't be Western Europeans going in and trying to tell these stories about the climate. So the idea was to commission filmmakers, activists, and journalists in the Global South to create a small 5-minute video about the climate crisis locally. So something that's happening to them right there and then, or someone they know, or someone in their community. These were all women. And I decided the best way to do it was kind of a process where I would teach how to use their phones or their cameras in order to kind of develop their story. So at the same time that I was kind of doing this process of training with Fathom, I was also at the same time doing that process in a different way with these filmmakers. And the idea is to have, you know, 5 to 6 videos that would kind of be standalone, but then could also be put together if need be, to kind of create these short kind of stories. And it's been incredible. It's been amazing because also it's created a network of filmmakers who, you know, we're all in a WhatsApp group together now. It allows for collaboration on other projects, and definitely the skill sharing aspect has been really important. And it's been great to put my skills, rather than just being kind of a producer, as more of a facilitator, which I think is really important from the position I'm coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I'm finding really fascinating about both your stories actually is this kind of idea of collaboration and skills sharing as well, upskilling people and kind of really taking that capability, you know, both globally, but also kind of really focusing that in on local issues to really connect people with what's happening on the ground. And actually, when you think about the context of, you know, COP26 and everything that's been going on there, actually, we know more than ever that we all at a kind of grassroots level and at a kind of advocacy level need to kind of really do all we can around that. And I'm really interested, just very quickly, to kind of explore, you know, this idea around kind of women's role in the climate agenda, because obviously both of you, as you know, young journalists and developing projects, have you seen that being a kind of powerful factor in the work that you've been doing? Alice, can I bring that to you quickly?
The role of especially women in climate change. So for example, I'll just use that example because I'm a storyteller and I like going into examples. We had a project once where we just commissioned female journalists. We asked for female journalists to apply, and we realized the way female journalists tell stories is almost completely different from the way our male counterparts do. And the thing is, not to say that the male counterparts don't pay as much attention to detail, because they do, but we realized that the women had a desire sort of to ask more in-depth questions, and just the fact that they bring that inquisitiveness into journalism, which I'm sure all journalists do. But we realized with female journalists, this one particular project we did where we commissioned the female journalists to work, it was one of our best projects ever. And I think just empowering women to go out and be able to cover stories on the ground is also empowering to more women in the communities. So our stories, we felt, that are covered by with female journalists, we realized even when they're on the ground, the way they interact with interviewees, the communities they visit, is very subtle. They always bring out more. And I hope this is not very very, what's the word? It's not very, doesn't go against what journalism stands for, because everybody is equal when it comes to journalism. But yeah, we really are, we appreciate working more with women. We provide similar opportunities to them as much as our male counterparts. So yeah, I think it's one of the pluses of working with female journalists.
That's
Yeah.
really, yeah, that's really interesting, the kind of idea of the different approach and perspective, actually. And I think that's another important point, actually, that in terms of, you know, different voices within the kind of climate you know, agenda and discourse, actually, you know, from marginalized groups to underrepresented, you know, obviously women have a huge part to play, not necessarily that they're marginalized, but certainly that their voices need to be heard. Pauline, can I come to you on that topic? You know, obviously Through Her Eyes immediately tells me that this is about women's perspectives. Can I just get you to tell us a little bit more in detail about actually what your project was all about?
Yeah, sure. I mean, similar to what Alice was saying, I think some of the stories that have come out of, I think, could have never happened if it wasn't a woman telling the story. Interviews with mothers, with different women in the community, which might be harder to have access to, and also the sensitivity that comes with telling these stories is completely different. And I noticed at the same time, which was also a bit disheartening, is there is a lack of confidence within that, especially when it comes to filming and the technical sides of filming. there's a lot of narrative around not being able to use the camera properly, not being confident enough to tell the story. And I think that's not something that you would necessarily get with if I had commissioned all male journalists, for example. And I think the part of this project is to allow for more women to feel like they can do it, and you don't need a high-end camera. You can just use your phone, and having the community to support you within that, I think it's is really important. And I think that was what was at the core of the project, getting those different perspectives, and specifically in the global south as well. So that was really important.
Yeah, and actually on that, just somebody in the chat has actually asked about where people can see the videos. Have you got any examples? I think you mentioned that you had something that you could share with us, just to give us a little bit of a flavour.
For sure, yeah. So I'm just in the editing process of all of them right now, but I have a tiny snippet from Marlene. She's from the Philippines, and she actually had to delay her filming because of the flooding. But I've got some video here. I think it's going to come up in a sec. It's just a small snippet.
Sa bahay kasi, 12 kami. Yung anak ko kasi na isa may asawa at anak na rin. Ngayon, yung pagbaha naman sa bahay, pag bumaha, kailangan mag-aangat ka na kasi aabutin na yung pinakasahig. Pero may hinihigaan naman kami. Kaso nga lang, nakaupo na. Hindi na kami makakatayo. Kailangan upo na lang. Ang inano ko rito, dinanas ko rito pinakamalakas na bagyo, yung Undoy tsaka Milenyo. Na-stranded ako sa Tenejeros. Napakalaki ng tubig. Natatakot ako kasi yung mga bata lang nasa bahay. Ang gusto kong umuwi. Ang ginawa ko, sumakay akong sidecar. Ang kaso, ang sidecar, kalahati na. Tapos lumusong ako hanggang dibdib ang tubig. Pagdating ko sa bahay, siguro yung pinakapapag namin, 2 dangkal na lang, aabutin na. Lahat ng bata nandun sa papag.
Yeah, that was just a snippet.
Yeah, it's really, really fantastic to see an example of the sort of work you've been doing, because I think it helps kind of bring to life actually the kind of real tangible experiences that people are having, in their everyday lives of climate change. And actually, it made me reflect on my own personal experiences this summer. I live in London, and we had torrential rain and actually flooding in my community. So, it really kind of, I can kind of connect to that story. And I think that is really, really an important part of engaging our audiences, is to help people connect with the lived experience.
Yeah.
Alice, can I come to you? Because obviously Pauline's story touched on water and flooding, and obviously InfoNile, and looking at the river basin and the experiences of water and its, access to water perhaps being one of the issues. Can you just tell us a little bit about your project and perhaps some perspectives that you encountered?
Yes. So the water issue in the Nile Basin is one that has often been reported in very controversial ways. So you find, for instance, the Guard Dam, for instance, the dam in Ethiopia that always Ethiopia, Egypt, Sudan, the journalists in those countries often report it in very controversial ways that sort of promote crisis and conflict. And our project and what InfoNile really focuses on is empowering journalists to be able to use science and data to report facts. So our mobile magazine, the way we are structuring it is for it to have not just perspectives from the community, which is important, but numbers that people can refer to, policymakers, and anybody interested in environment can refer to up-to-date statistics that can actually shape narratives. So, and many of the water stories that we engage with always start as problems, a problem that a community is not happy about, or something that holding governments to account. But we realized that with more empowerment to journalists, they are able to find solutions to many of those problems that they're reporting. So our mobile magazine, I had actually prepared something. I don't know if I'm able to share it, but I can just show you one example of a story that we were working on that shows you how a problem, a community has a problem, but then just through reporting and through community engagements, they're able to have solutions. So yes, there are a lot of water challenges in the Nile Basin, but there are also solutions. And one of the ways we found that encourages this solution is collaboration, especially between science and media, because that's where there's a great drift.
Are you able to share? Have you got an example that you'd like to share with us? I think you have that kind of function that you can do that. And I think just whilst you do that, I would just say that the kind of idea around collaboration and the cross-fertilization actually of different mediums, science, data, different skill sets is absolutely essential in terms of finding solutions and creative solutions at that, and innovation. So I don't know whether
definitely.
Yeah.
Are you able to see my screen now?
We can, yes. That's great.
Perfect. Oh, it disappeared.
It
Just 1 minute.
again.
Yes, I'll do it.
It's wonderful,
No.
but sometimes it can fail us, but that's okay. We'll hold tight. Brilliant.
Perfect. Can you see it now?
We can see your screen. Yeah. So
great. I want to tell you about this one story about an island in Rusinga. Rusinga is one of the islands in Lake Victoria, and this is one example of how we package our stories for mobile magazines. So you picture what you're seeing on your screen as something you'd be seeing on your phone. And this story was done by one of our photojournalists called Tony Wild. It's about this island where the main activity is fishing. It's a beautiful spot. If you ever travel to Kenya, you must visit Rusinga Island. And the most common fish that is caught in this island is Victoria sardines. In our local language, we call it mukene or omena. And every evening you see fishermen running off. They're off with their fishing squads to set off, and they go in the evening because of a very interesting reason. The sardines during the day, they are always at the bottom of the lake, but at night they come up. They're attracted by light to come up at night, so that's why the fishermen always go at night. And a reason, one of the things that the fishermen always used back in the day, they always used kerosene lamps like the one you see on the left. But this always had issues with the water quality. Sometimes you'd find the kerosene would leak into the water. It's also sort of expensive to buy fuel every day. It's also dangerous because these lamps can always just explode while you use them. And the one on the right is the one they're currently using, which are solar lamps. And they're easy to use because you can just turn it on by a button, and they're cheaper. They're healthy. They don't have any fumes that they emit. And like I said earlier, we're all about numbers and trying to rationalize issues with data. And we found out that the price of using kerosene lamps as compared to solar lamps was quite different. And that's probably one of the reasons why the fishermen are actually using solar lamps as compared to kerosene lamp. And this just shows you that communities are eager to find solutions to climate change. And this is just one of the fishmongers. She's carrying a bucket full of sardines on her head. And yeah, so and you can clearly see the reason why we are using WhatsApp magazines is because they're really easy to read, easy to share, engagements are high. And the way we do it at InfoNile is we translate our content. So we have different languages into the 5 Nile Basin languages. And it's very interesting. So we really are looking forward to grow with this mobile magazine idea to just share solution stories with our audiences.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that it's such a brilliant approach, and also just the quality of the photography is just fantastic. And you know, I just say, you know, that actually those kind of images, you know, really connect with people, don't they? And Pauline, did you find that with your filming, you know, in terms of kind of getting those moments where you saw, you know, you see these things and these opportunities happening in front of you, and the quality of the content that you were getting through?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was always a bit nerve-wracking at the beginning when I commissioned the filmmakers to see, you know, when they first sent in the footage, to see, you know, what they sent in. But I mean, everything was just brilliant and really, really incredible. And I think also what's important to note is that it's not just about kind of the visual aesthetics of this. It's also the stories, the audio, what's coming through. And I think what I got from the filmmakers was a great mix of all of those. But yeah, very impressed.
Yeah. And I suppose that's an important point to pick up on, actually, in terms of the kind of intimacy and the kind of access that you got, because when you touched on the point earlier about how you selected the stories to focus on, actually kind of, and working with people who are actually based in locations, you know, where you're physically not there, you know, were there any kind of challenges in that, or particularly sort of surprising things that you learned in that process?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's always practical elements. So, you know, maybe slow Wi-Fi, storage space, just, yeah, always practical elements. But there was also constraints over, like I said before, some people couldn't film for a couple of days because, yeah, the flooding was so bad, for example. And also communication, so making sure that I was clear enough in terms of the brief. So I learned a lot there about not necessarily, you know, some people want a full detailed brief. They really want to know exactly what I think would be best. Some people wanted complete freedom. So it's about working with the individual and knowing how creative they wanted to be or how collaborative they wanted to be on it. And so that was also a learning process for me, especially doing it over different time zones, using WhatsApp or Telegram or different modes of messaging as well, learning how each person works best, and it's just tailoring that to each person.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, Alice, do you have any insights on that? Because you're talking about kind of geojournalism and working with different people collaboratively. Do you have any experience of that where you are?
So we realized that many of the journalists we work with have a basic understanding of journalism, maybe from their schools, their universities, and unfortunately many of the curricula hasn't quite adapted to the new way of doing things. So you find the knowledge that these journalists have when they go out, if he's a TV journalist, for instance, they are told to just use a tripod and your camera. If it's a radio journalist, they just come with a microphone and nothing more. So we've realized that it's very important to equip journalists with new skills as the world changes, so that they're able to adapt to changing technology, how people access knowledge and information. So, and that's one of the things that even in our project as we continue, we are making sure that we can empower more journalists to use new ways, to use data, to visualize their data in ways that a user can interact with it on their phone. And I think it's a process. It's a steady but growing process.
The idea actually that there are, you know, new ways of using different technologies, different skill sets, and actually for a journalist to bring, you know, all of those together, you know, that actually the kind of multifaceted aspect of reporting these stories, you know, and actually the huge opportunities there are in that. In terms of the funding, the bursary is obviously amazing. Do you think that, broadly speaking, you know, climate journalism, so, you know, supporting that, do you think that there is the adequate funding? Do you think we can go further? Do you think we can do more? Alice, can I ask you that question? Oh, Alice is frozen.
Yeah.
Oh,
perfect. I just unmuted, no worries. So there is definitely a need. climate hasn't posed for us. Climate change hasn't posed for journalists and journalism as a whole. So I really think there is a need for more investment to be put into reporting new ways of climate, enough to have people take action. And one of the journalists the other day said people don't take action because they don't appreciate something. They don't appreciate something because they don't have enough knowledge about it. So I think if we put more investment, there is need to have more investment in climate change reporting and climate news, and especially solution journalism. There, it kind of creates a base, a foundation for even the future generations to come from, so that we know that this is a problem, this is how we fix it, these are the skills we need to fix it. So yes, most definitely we need resources. We like, for example, at InfoNile, we're just a small granting organization, so we're always out there looking for more grants, more opportunities to train, to build capacities. There will be a time when we'll say it's enough, but now it's not it.
And how about you? What's your perspective on that, Pauline?
Yeah, definitely. More funding is definitely needed. I think it's also about funding projects that are directly trying to make kind of social change, not something which a funding body's just decided that they're going to do a bit of greenwashing and just decide that, we'll do a climate grant, and not really see the output of it and what the actual impact will be from that grant. So I think, definitely needed. I think definitely new mediums. I think things like new medias and technology is really important, and how we get information out there, dissemination of work that's being created, of writing that's being done, and accessibility as well. And I think if there's a clear plan for where these stories are going to go and what social impact it's going to have, I think that will be I think that's where the funding needs to go.
Yeah, I mean, actually, we are Eden Project Communities is funded by the National Lottery Community Fund, and actually speaking with them just recently, obviously, coinciding with COP26, they've actually got funding available for community projects to want to take climate action, and obviously reporting on the stories and the impact. So not just the funding, but then telling those stories and sharing those stories in order to inspire others is absolutely kind of, I think those things go hand in hand. So it's, you seed and you create these pockets of action which you want to amplify so that more people take that on and learn from it. So I think what you guys are both doing is absolutely fantastic, and it's been such a delight and a pleasure meeting you both, and learning about what you're both doing, and obviously I know that you're making this great content. Is there any kind of where that people can watch the full films from you, Pauline, and also Alice? Is there any information that you can share about where people might be able to access and look at more detailed stories, and read them in full? Pauline, can I ask you first, perhaps the films?
So the film should be out early next year, and you can follow me on, the production company on Twitter, because we're just getting all the social media ready. So it's at @OwlCProd, and I can put it in the comments, but just watch that space.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm really excited to follow up on that when that comes out next year. And Alice, how about you?
Yes, most definitely. Our website is www.infonile.org. I'll also put that in the chat. And there you can find all our in-depth stories. We are currently just going through a process with one of the leading WhatsApp solution providers to be able to give us a WhatsApp number that people can text. So we don't have that ready yet. We're currently just using WhatsApp groups, but we realize for privacy issues, it's not very consistent. Sorry about the noise in my background. Yes, please follow us on Twitter. We are at InfoNile. On Facebook, we are at InfoNile Project. And thank you very much for having us today.
Thank you. It's been really a real insight for us, and hopefully audiences have enjoyed it too. But just to say that the Festival of Discovery is running this weekend until Saturday evening, so there's still absolutely loads on offer to watch. And actually, we've got a fantastic panel discussing how women can change the world tomorrow. So, you know, for that and much more, you can go to thefestivalofdiscovery.com to find out more. But thank you guys, really lovely to meet you both, and have a brilliant day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.